In his first year as king of Persia, Cyrus the Great issued a decree in writing to the Israelite exiles living under his rule. The God of heaven has given me all the kingdoms of the earth and has appointed me to build a temple for him in Jerusalem. Any of his people may go up to Jerusalem in Judah to build the temple of the Lord, the God of Israel. And in any place where survivors may now be living, the people of Persia are to provide them with silver, gold, goods, livestock, and offerings for the temple of God in Jerusalem. It's Ezra 1, 2-4 paraphrase. Because
the Board Boys.
we are playing Ezra and Nehemiah.
That was short.
Do you want me to do the second half of it?
I guess fine.
I'm just surprised.
Decades later, in the 20th year of Artaxerxes' reign, the king noticed a sadness in his cupbearer.
Dude, Xerxes is a four-bling name.
Well, this is Artaxerxes, so not just regular Xerxes. This is Artaxerxes. He noticed a sadness in his cupbearer, Nehemiah, who's, if you read the book of Nehemiah, is a stud, I think. When asked why he looked so ill, Nehemiah replied, "May the king live forever. Why should I not look sad when the city of my ancestors lies in ruins, and its gates have been destroyed by fire? If it pleases you, and if I have found favor in your sight, let me go to the city in Judah where my ancestors are buried so that I may rebuild it." Nehemiah 2, 3-5. Paraphrase. Yeah, that's the message translation.
You've already used your 4-blank. Get that 4-blank comment out of here.
No.
You used it 2 weeks ago.
You can use it as much as you want. No, there's no rules on four-blank
said
names.
Grande was a
These
4-blank name.
these BJ rules. 4
Yeah,
blank, 5 blanks.
it's 4.5.
Xerxes is a sick name on its own. Artaxerxes, I don't think is just cool.
I agree with that.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Board Boys Podcast, Season 14, Episode 11, Ezra and Nehemiah by Garphill Games. Good old Shemmy Phillips.
S.J. McDonald.
And S.J. McDonald. No the Miko, though.
I think the Miko would have been a little weird for this one.
Yeah, they went a little more serious with the artwork.
Artwork's good, though.
This is your board boy, Apostle Rob.
This is your boy, Timothy.
This is your board boy straight out of Judea, Jake.
And this is your board boy, Boinker McDoinker, a.k.a. Old Testament Cam, a.k.a. Malachi.
That's like Wrath of God stuff right there.
Old Testament Cam? Oh, well, the Wrath of God was prior to this game when the Israelites, both the northern and southern kingdom, that had schismed after the rule of King Solomon.
Yeah, it's 2 colorless mana, 2 white mana, destroy all creatures.
Well, no, they didn't destroy all the creatures. So the Babylonians came and ransacked, I think the northern kingdom first, then the southern kingdom, and like basically took all the best people to go live in Babylon under King Nebuchadnezzar, who you probably have heard of.
Yeah, that's a 4-blank name,
That
too.
is a 4-blank name.
Get out of here.
So then, about 80 years later, I think it was, the Persians whooped up on Babylon. And so when Cyrus took over, their politics were a little bit more like, we let people sort of live in their place and do their thing. So he kind of that was when he started letting a lot of people go back. So the story of Ezra and Nehemiah, they're like the 3 leaders you saw on the board. Zerubbabel was the first one to go as like a leader of the exiles returning, and they got the temple built. And then Ezra showed up to teach people the Torah and did like big like religious reforms. And then Nehemiah showed up, the cupbearer of the king. So Nehemiah had like a ton of actual authority in the Persian government because he's like one of the king's like top dudes, and also was very wealthy. So he was able to donate like a lot of money out of his own pocket, and also had like enough political weight to throw around where like when the surrounding leaders that were also under Persian rule were getting like jealous because they were rebuilding the city, he had like enough political weight to like kind of like deny it, you know. Like there's some good stories like where they try to trick Nehemiah in the book of Nehemiah. Like his enemies like want him to come out into like basically outside the city for like, hey, let's make peace, but he realizes they're like gonna try to kill him, so he just keeps denying them and like writing letters like, why would I come meet you when I have work to do? It's a good book. It's Nehemiah is very interesting. Ezra is interesting. Nehemiah is very interesting. So
Man, I just make a Magic the Gathering joke, and I got a whole history lesson. Thanks, Cam.
we could go further into the story of Ezra and Nehemiah. If
That's
you guys
true. But this is a board game podcast.
want. We played Ezra and Nehemiah today.
So let's talk about some board games. Campbell, what you been playing?
Jake's got the box right here. Should we talk about Faraway, Jake?
Yeah.
Is this brand new to you?
It is brand new to me, yes.
Okay, so do you want me to talk about
Go
how
ahead.
you played? Or
You dive in.
So Faraway is a super neat filler game that I think I probably want to also pick up. Looks like it's from Pandasaurus Games.
The designer is Johan Goopy.
Goopy.
And Corentin Lebrat.
Yeah, it's got cool art too. The art looks really good. It's essentially a game where you play 8 cards and then score them in reverse. So on your turn, you play a card secretly from a hand of 3 cards. Everybody reveals at the same time. It goes in your tableau, basically left to right. So each card chronologically comes after each card preceding it. So you play your cards. You take a look at the numbers on the cards. Whoever played the lowest card gets to pick the card to refill their hand first from the tableau of cards. And then anybody who played a card in ascending order from their last card, Racco style, will get to take like a sanctuary card that is like a small boost to their tableau. That's all you do. There are a couple wrinkles, but I don't think you need to really talk about those. Once you've gotten to card number 8, you flip all your cards over, and then you flip your cards over in reverse order. You keep your sanctuaries up, and they always score. But basically, each card has a resources it may give you, like whether it's a day or a night card, what color it is, whether or not it gives you one of the 4 resources, and whether it has a map on it. And then you'll like look at that card. The card may have a cost to score points. If the cost is taken care of by that card, you get to score the points on the card. So generally speaking, you're not going to have banked up the stuff at the end of your tableau to score those first few cards. But every card you go back, you get to flip up a new card, and you get to add all the stuff you have together for the purposes of scoring the next card. So it's this really neat game of trying to set up like really heavy scoring cards at the very beginning of your tableau. However, you get really good stuff for playing low cards and like ascending. So the balancing act between the two is really cool. I think there's a really high skill cap on the game. However, there's so much luck in it that you could just absolutely smoke a good player the first time you play. So I think those are 2 things that make filler games really fun.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting. It's really light in what you're doing, but it's really hard to wrap your brain around the first time you play it. So like, every time I've shown this to new people, I've just reiterated repeatedly that, okay, now the card you lay now, that is not going to you're not going to get a count anything you've played before it. So you're building what's going to score super early in the game and then trying to make that happen. And so it's just kind of normally you look out and see what you have. Okay, I'm going to score this many points because I have this many things visible, but the way you score because it's backwards doesn't work that way. So I think it's super interesting, and I think because of that and because of how short it is, I think that will really lend itself to being interesting for a long time. So I really enjoy it. Okay, I got one more that I'm going to talk about. So I played Hegemony, Lead Your Class to Victory. It is has sneaked into the top 100, actually. So it has grown despite being a 2023 game. Its designer is, ooh, man, this is going to be tough. It is Vangelis Bagiartius and Varnavis Timotheo. Anyway, so what is happening here is effectively you are playing out a political system that is kind of swaying between being more socialist or more capitalist. And so each of the 4 factions, one is the working class, one is the middle class, one is the capitalist class, and then one is the state. And they are fully asymmetric factions who are doing and scoring things differently, but basically the things that each group is doing then affects the way that each of the other group is able to earn points and earn income. So when I played, I was the working class, and largely I was trying to increase my workforce. I was trying to educate my workforce, get them as much employment as possible, and then create trade unions to have negotiating power. And so you can you can do strikes, you can run demonstrations, and effectively you are relying on the middle class and the upper class, the capitalist group, to create businesses that then can hire your employees. And so they obviously want the profits for running those businesses. But also, there's a whole mechanism worth of wages. How much are they going to pay you? And so then the state wasn't in the game that I played because we just played a 3-player game. But effectively, they are the government that is trying to make policies pass certain ways. So there's a lot of anytime actions you can take, like recommending bills to be passed to try to move there's a continuum of whether it's more of a conservative or more of a liberal type bill. And then otherwise, it's card play. So you get a card, and then you can take the action on the card or do other things. I think it is easily one of the most thematic experiences I've had. Because it's so thematic and because it's so tied to some of the, I guess, negatives about a capitalist economic system, sometimes that makes the theme less fun, just in the fact of what is happening with it. But again, I think it's a super well done game and could be really, really fun with people who really got into it and really understood the meta of how it works. It's definitely a lot, and it's a heavy teach in that they are very different factions. And even when we played, I relied on probably a third of the things that I could have done and just kind of did those things repeatedly. So I think there's a lot to uncover, and I'm curious to kind of see how it evolves.
So they're asymmetric in how the cards work, but they're not asymmetric in what you actually do. Like on your turn, you still play a card and do actions.
Yes, okay. You do play cards and do actions, but what those actions are similar in some cases and different in others. But for like most of my working class cards were all about like finding ways to strike or adding people to the workforce. And like the capitalist class, it was creating a business or selling a business to buy an offshore island. So, things that happen in there. There's a really weird dynamic that I guess, again, is really aligning to the thematic goal of the game. But like, there's just this weird limbo where for me to make money, I'm relying on people to create businesses. And when they don't, you're just kind of stuck. But again, that's heavily thematic. So if you want a very thematic experience and you like political science type things, I can't recommend it enough in those cases. But it is, again, it's a lot and probably for a very niche audience.
Yeah, it seems like one of those that a core group would just love that game probably and play it over and over again, and like you'd get a lot out of that. It won a lot of awards, so it seems very popular. It won a lot of Golden Geek Awards in the recent thing, and I was kind of surprised because I didn't know it was like that popular.
Yeah, I mean, for it to shoot up as fast as it did is
like I'm not even sure
it's going to go way higher.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It has to be in retail, I guess, for it to do that. But I
would assume so. I think the Kickstarter came out quite a while ago, and so there's probably some retail.
Yeah, it was last year. Yeah, you can buy it on Amazon, so it must be in distribution as well. Lead your class to victory.
Sounds tight.
Right?
It'll be the state. Just crush all you guys.
Yeah. Well, I've got a couple of games I want to talk about. One is called Emerge. This is also from Pandasaurus Games.
Sheesh! Pandasaurus Day.
Designers Adam DeYoung and the art is Tom Goyen. This came out last year. And I've seen this box at Dungeons Gate a few times. My friend Dave Dugas wanted to get this one to the table at BGG
Dave
Spring.
Dugas, my friend. What are you talking
about? Yeah, right. And we sat down and played it, and it's an interesting game. It has lots of cool wooden meeples. Essentially, in Emerge, you play the game for like 8 rounds, and every round you're going to roll some dice and use them to collect research and make discoveries. Everyone starts with the same board, but you can put different tiles on your board. So you have to start every island by building a tree, and then from a tree you can make a crab, and then you can build a turtle, I think, and then you get a seal. And those are all the kinds of animals. And you can also get birds to come fly to your island, or you can steal birds from other people's islands. And you could also grow your island. It starts at level 1, and then you can have it up to level 3. Essentially, the main beef of the scoring in the game is you multiply all the wooden pieces you've built on your island times how tall you got your island to be. And that's the whole game. There's some like public objectives that you're racing for. And the game is just, it's really solid, straightforward, easy to teach. It's pretty. It must have just It says it was out last year. I don't know if it's flown under the radar or what. There's not a lot of. It's like ranked 6,000 or something.
Is it similar at all to Acropolis? Like the way you're talking about building up and multipliers in that case makes it sound similar.
In that way that you score like that, yeah. Okay. There's also like these like little research tiles you can get, and then like they're like one-time little bonuses you can get. The only downside is like you're kind of at the mercy of a dice roll. There are some ways, like when you upgrade the tiles on your board, there are some ways to fix those, and they have one-time abilities. But like if you really want to build a turtle, I think the turtle is like you have to roll 3s, and you need so many of those dice to be able to build it. Well, you can just go buy the turtle tech tile and cover up another number, and now maybe 3s and 4s will build a turtle. So you can kind of mitigate that kind of thing and kind of get what you want. So yeah, it's super easy. I think like it'd be really easy to jump into, and you can play this with a lot of people. It's only got a weight of 2. So for like as big as the game looks, it's fairly accessible, I think.
It looks cool.
Yeah.
The art's great.
That is true. It's a very pretty game. The other one I want to talk about is Everdell Farshore. This is the
Farshore?
Farshore.
You sure about that?
Yes.
Is
Okay.
Everdell actually in the name, or is it just Farshore?
No, it's Everdell Farshore. Okay. It's Everdell in like little letters, and it says Farshore. This is Everdell 2.0, I think. Ultimately, if you know how to play Everdell, you can learn how to play Farshore in about 3 minutes, because there's about 2 or 3 major things that are different. And we've done an episode on it. If you haven't played Everdell, you can go back and listen to that. I'm just going to talk about the differences. The main ones are, it got rid of the ability. There's no longer any buildings where you can go place on other people's tableaus to use their buildings. That's just gone. They also removed the get creatures for free ability. Like if you had the farm, then you could build like the farmer, right? And you would just cover it up with one of those little door tokens. They still have that, only you get 3 anchors. They're these really cool metal anchors at the beginning of the game. So you can do that 3 times, and you just have to match the color. So as long as the color of the card matches, like the color of the construction matches the color of the creature or critter, then you can throw an anchor down on it and you can play it for free. So instead of being able to do it like for a bunch of different ones, you can do it 3 total times. And then the other big thing is there's these 2 little tiles that switch every round when the last person passes out of a season. And it might sit, one pile shows the symbols of the cards. You know, there's like the purple cards, the red cards, the green cards. It shows that symbol. The other one either says unique or common or critter or construction. And every round, a different pairing of those gets flipped up. And if you build one of those, then you get to move your boat around the outside of this thing. And there's other ways to move your boat. And the boat's basically going to give you these treasure chests that are worth 2 points, or you can use them as a wild resource. So that's very cool too. You can either kind of hoard them. So it's like Everdell. You get lots of different ways to combo. The boat is very important. You can score up to 60 points if you can crank your boat all the way around the outside. If you don't like Everdell, but you like, or shouldn't say that. If you don't own Everdell, I would probably just buy Farshore and ignore the original. Like the game, I think, is just more streamlined and is better. All in all, if you own everything for it, I don't think you need to own both. Like I have the Everdell big box. I'm not going to go buy Farshore. Plus, Starling Games, quit trying to sell your game for way more money than it's worth. Just throwing that out there.
Everdell or Everdell Farshore is still expensive.
They're all expensive.
Okay.
Like, but I think the MSRP on Farshore is like $100.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, you can get it for cheaper than that.
Sure.
But I'm pretty sure that the
No, it definitely
MSRP
is.
is like $90 or $100. And it's not a $90 or $100 game. I don't care how many
It
little
looks like a normal
metal
regular...
anchors you get and squishy little
Yeah.
mushrooms you put in there. Your profit margins has to be fantastic on that game. That's my only critique of that, I would say. But go find it for a better price. And
So, I've never played Everdell. I've seen a bunch of people play it.
Oh.
Like, it's usually a 3+ hour game.
no way.
Yeah,
It can take a really
I've seen people
long
play
time.
it like 3-4 hours
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it could. I mean, both of our games lasted like 90 minutes.
Okay.
Part of the thing is it can play up to 6 as well with some of the expansions. And
Oh yeah, don't touch that. I'll play Everdell with you sometime if
Okay.
you want. I'll even
mean,
throw
not-
in a couple of expansions. It doesn't take that
Sounds
long.
like I'd rather play Farshore.
There's some cool Everdell expansions
Okay.
that make it cool.
Okay.
I guess. Like, I don't know. Farshore is neat though. I really like the boat. Although they could have just made the boat like a colored piece of wood meeple. They made it a bigger piece of plastic that you put one of your workers in. And it's a pain in the butt when everyone's around the same spot on the board to try to remember where you are. And like if you've got them lined up, you can't stack them. These boats are just awfully designed.
Bigger than the space.
Yeah, they should have been stackable and smaller. Like they didn't need to make them these cool big boats.
So they added a $2 boat
Yeah,
and raised the price by $15.
probably.
Yeah.
So I could do without that. Like they should have come up with some kind of stackable little boat meeple or something. That would have been fine. Anyway, Everdell Farshore. I thought it was. I played it twice at BGG Con. So I played it once and learned it, and then I immediately taught it to my wife and Dave and his wife. So and then we played that.
Cool.
All right, well, tonight we played Ezra and Nehemiah, where we're rebuilding the walls and the temple for returning exiles of ancient Jerusalem. It's 1 to 4 players, best at 3, 90 to 120 minutes, ages 13 plus. The weight is 3.79 out of 5. The designers S.J. McDonald and Shem Phillips. Artist is Sam Phillips. Maybe no relation. Jake doesn't know.
I feel like I looked this up at one point, but I don't remember the answer.
And the publisher is Garp Hill Games, and I think it's going to be Renegade Games eventually. They tend to do all their stuff here. Currently, it is ranked 5,124 overall because it's brand new, and that is with an 8.3 rating. So, who wants to explain
I think we should let Cam run with this one.
E and N?
So E&N, baby. It is a game where you are doing what I was talking about earlier when I gave my synopsis of Ezra and Nehemiah, the books.
Boom, done.
Basically, you are going into, and we'll do this in the order of Ezra and Nehemiah. So you're taking the exiles back to Jerusalem, and you take actions to rebuild the temple and start doing sacrifices there again. And those are red actions, which are also linked to the hero card Zerubbabel. So when you take temple actions, you can commit resources to the temple, and you can also send new Levites to work there and do sacrifices. Then there are scribe actions, which are blue, and those the hero card Ezra aligns to that because he's a teacher of the Torah, and your scribe actions are either to go around the city and in kind of a rondel motion and teach the Torah, or you can commit scribes to go scribe out the Torah. And so there's all these different little scrolls that actually they list through the different sections of the Torah, which is why there's all that writing underneath, Jake, if you'd see the board. But those are basically your technology tiles and where you would get the hero cards of the game. So the first row of them is Zerubbabel, Ezra, and Nehemiah. The second 2 rows are like game-altering technologies, and then the top row is endgame scoring stuff. And then the third type of action you can take in the game is that's related to Nehemiah, who came near the end. Well, near the end of actually like the halfway point of Ezra and Nehemiah, the 2 books, but came like 60 years, 70 years after Zerubbabel, like 10 or so years after Ezra. Sorry for not getting those dates exactly right. And started rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. So you take your gray actions to go pick up rubble from all the walls and then rebuild the walls and gates of Jerusalem. And so that's the whole base game. You just take one of those 3 actions on your turn. But then the stuff you add to it is you can take auxiliary actions and trading actions to trade resources, to upgrade kind of your player board so you have cooler actions, to play elders and traders to get extra banners for your actions or resources to use. Then at the end of every 6 turns, you have a Sabbath turn where you see how you match up versus the decrees of the prophets Haggai and Zechariah. Like I mentioned, Malachi gets snubbed. He was also a contemporary. But Haggai and Zechariah are the two bookends of where you're trying to be on like the sacrifice track. And then you do some probably really cool part of the game. You choose one of the cards you've played to tuck to permanently increase your value of that action, but also create a scoring objective for yourself. So you'll do 3 Sabbaths. It's Sabbaths. You'll do 3 Sabbaths, and then you count up all your points for building walls and gates and scrolls and all that stuff, and that's the game.
All right, let's get it to the table, and we'll be right back.
Cool. You guys have any questions about how many, like all the people that came back with Ezra and Nehemiah? You have any questions about Chapter 9, where they basically tell the whole history of the Israelites? Have any questions about when Nehemiah tore a guy's beard out? No? Okay.
What part of his beard?
It's actually so the literal translation is that he tore his hair out, but I think a lot of people assume it was a face grab and ripped on his beard. He was upset. So,
I mean, I've seen lots of fights where people will get their hair torn out.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's true. But I mean, if you look at all of these people, the majority of them are wearing like stuff over their hair and not over their beards.
Yeah, but like if you were to fight.
So the interesting thing about this is really like Old Testament, like Israelite writing type stuff. The 3 leaders of this reconstruction like make a lot of progress and then like they run into like a bummer. So like Zerubbabel goes and he gets the temple rebuilt, but then he has all this opposition from people who are living in the areas, and so kind of like doesn't get the work done. Then Ezra shows up and like tries to get people like really like back in like religious purity, but like that kind of fails too. And then Nehemiah shows up and they get the walls rebuilt really quickly, and he also is working with Ezra to like kind of sanctify the area. But at the like literally the book of Nehemiah ends with like him just being like, I tried my best, but like still the people living here don't want to live in the way we're supposed to live. So it's kind of a cycle of like uppers and downers all throughout the book. Anyway, join me on my Ezra and Nehemiah podcast for more. And that's the first half of the episode. So here's the song I decided to put in.
By the rivers of Babylon, where he sat down, and there he wept when he remembered Zion. 'Cause the wicked carried us away captivity, required from us a song. How can we sing King Alpha's song in a strange land? 'Cause the wicked carried us away captivity, required from us a song. How can we sing King Alpha's song in a strange land? Sing it aloud.
All right, we're back. Jake and Cam, you both backed this bad boy. Initial thoughts on Ezra and Nehemiah. Why'd you back it?
So I've become I guess certain games, not all of them, but I've become definitely a fan of some of this ancient series. So obviously Hadrian's Wall is something I've talked about a lot. Legacy of You is also designed by Shem Phillips, which is, again, part of their ancient line. So as soon as I saw it coming, I was pretty into it. There was also some promos for Hadrian's Wall and Legacy of You that I did not get because I didn't do crowdfunding for those when they came out. So I was really excited to be able to get those, to add those to my collection as well. So honestly, as soon as I saw it was coming, I was pretty confident I was going to back it, and that's why I mentioned something in the Discord and led to some others. But upon first play, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of what I was hoping it was going to be. There's definitely some elements that were familiar to some of those ancient history line again. So that was a positive connection, and it was definitely a favorable experience.
Jake told me, hey, man, are you getting that Ezra and Nehemiah board game? I think because I was talking about Ezra and Nehemiah, like just casually in another podcast, right? Is that what happened?
As you do.
I mean, who doesn't, right?
or maybe Jake just knows that I like the Bible, and he was like, "Hey, are you getting this game?" And I took a look at it, and it didn't look lame. Even though I'm not so crazy about these designers and this whole line of games in general, I honestly I'm coming around on most of them. A lot of the middle of the pack seem to be pretty superfluous in a lot of the stuff you do, but like some of them are just incredible games. But I was so zazzed on the theme, and I'm happy to report after like an initial couple plays of it that the thematics of the game are absolutely fire, and so I was zazzed.
On my first play, I think I was more surprised that I liked it better than I thought I was going to. Something about their games, besides Hadrian Wall, I don't really like. None of them really get me excited about playing them. The ones that I have played have not been very great, so I was not really expecting this one to be. I was expecting it to be in that same boat, and it surprised me quite possibly.
My initial thought was I thought this was a roll and write.
Nice.
So I don't know how many times I had to ask, wait, it's not a roll and write?
That's Cam's version of Ezra and Nehemiah.
I wish it was. Yeah, dude, if you're listening, Ryan, you and me, we're going to design the Ezra and Nehemiah roll and write. It's going to be called Zechariah, Haggai, and Malachi. It's going to be about prophecy.
So that was mine. I'm with Tim. Garphill games do not move the needle for me at all, so I had no expectations really coming into it. I can start off with the pros, though. I watched the video today and learned it from good old Paul Grogan, and by the end of the video, I was like, well, that seems pretty easy. It didn't really... I haven't read the rule book, but if you can watch a 30-minute video on Paul Grogan at 1.75 speed is what I did. Because I don't got time for that. I can understand him. And I pretty much knew, I just had to ask a couple of questions, but I pretty much knew what was going on just from that. And that's pretty good for me as someone who is bad at learning board games that I didn't learn myself.
I mean, despite being like a 3.7 or 3.8 complexity, the rule book I think is exceptional. It does a really nice job of, I guess the organization of it is good, and that it jumps right into here are your main actions. Here's kind of the flow of the game. I think it does a really good job of preparing you to know how to play it.
The rule book seemed kind of intimidating because it's thick, but it was written very well.
There's examples for a lot of things, which is always really valuable.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we mentioned this a little bit earlier, but the art's wonderful. Like it really draws you in. It's so it's the same artist as Hadrian's Wall, which we mentioned, and I really enjoy the art of that too. But most of the art is at least on the cards, anyways, is organized around individuals, and I think they do a really nice job. They're really expressive images, and I think just the colors really pop, and the way the board is organized is nice. There's some place for graphic design wise. There's reminders about everything you would want to see. I know Rob mentioned this earlier, but the play rate is wonderful. Like, it does a really nice job of laying out the phases of the game and the scoring. I think they just did a really nice job in that regard.
The iconography is also very good. Like, as someone that doesn't know the game, even the tactiles, I was like, oh, this one does this, right? And you'd be like, yes, it does that. Or this one does that. And so I thought it was pretty intuitive. If you played some games, you would know, oh, that symbols this action, and so here I get extra bonus for this or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to get a half a boing for just that stuff for me. I thought the layout was great. The art was good. I mean, it wasn't the Miko, so for me, that's a half a boing.
It would have been a lot funnier if it was the Miko, for sure.
That's true.
Is that the artist that did the other?
He does all the other. Okay. Yeah, it's just some people like that style. I just think it's goofy.
I like his art style for the games he's the artist of. Like, I think it's like perfect for like those Middle Ages and Viking games.
Yeah, like I think it's
like you're kind of making fun of those guys when you're playing.
I don't mind it in Merchant's Cove, I think.
Yeah, it's great in Merchant's Cove. That's like the best. That's like the best possible.
Yeah, I just remember the female character art was interesting, to say something.
For Miko designs?
Yeah.
In Merchant's Cove?
No. Merchant's Cove, I didn't even notice it. I didn't even know that was the same artist.
Just because they're all like kind of big brassy broads?
Yeah, they're just like, boobs everywhere, and I don't know. It's
I always thought they were like kind of Bertha type characters.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? Which
Yeah.
I think it's kind of cool.
All right, I'll jump in with a pro. So the flag system, the flag
Banners.
system, banners, the banner system of how you do your actions, I thought was interesting. It's fun. It's a little bit like Viscounts, where I don't know what Viscounts is. Like there's symbols on those cards where you play it in a row.
Yeah.
Right. A little bit like that, but you can add a meeple to kind of juice your action one time around, and then kind of plan your actions going forward on how big of a turn you need to be. I thought it was the star of the game for me.
I think all the actions are really fun, even though I've never taken a red action to this date, ever in my entire
No,
time.
you burned something at one turn. You're like, I'm gonna
I
burn
walked it
this.
back. I went tense instead.
Oh, okay.
So I still have yet to take a red action, which in both of the times I played, I was like, I'm gonna do that red action a bunch, and then it just the way the cookies crumbled, it just didn't end up being that. And guess what? I lost both times, and Jake still thinks red is weak, but I think red is strong. I think red is so strong. That's how I feel.
I disagree. We will talk about that a little bit later. I think that there's a fun trade-off too. I know we mentioned this. You're scoring cards, and then you get to score things, over time. So you can kind of set that goal in the first of the 3 weeks of what thing you're really going to try to lean on, because you can score that 3 times. But you do lose that card when you tuck it. So whatever the trade auxiliary ability is on the bottom, that's not something you're going to be able to do again. Which, as you slowly run out of resources on the board, it gets much harder to get resources. So you got to be cognizant of what you're giving up, but also some of the cards that are heavy in one banner color, when you tuck those, you lose the ability to take some of those really powerful actions because you're losing a lot of those banners. Yes, you're getting one permanent one, but like if you tuck your 3 red or your 3 blue or your 3 gray, that card's no longer in your deck. So the most you're getting out of any other card is 2 plus whatever benefits you have to the side. So I think that's a fun decision tree, and it's nice to kind of figure out which way you want to lean. And the fact that there's 10 of those cards definitely gives you flexibility in that you only score 4 of them.
I like the interplay between the flag actions and the aux actions and flipping your tiles. I ran into multiple times where it was like I wanted to do kind of both the aux action and flip the tile. It kind of made me think about, am I going to be able to flip this tile, and what's this aux action do for me? Can I use it here? Can I use it that? And it lets you also wobble into some places you probably wouldn't be able to go, especially lots of times when you upgrade your boards, you don't get a bonus. This one you get a bonus for upgrading. So you upgrade something, you get a meeple that then you can use. You can do it at any time. I really liked thinking about that and kind of working through those challenges.
I like everything that you guys have already said. The action system is cool. It's kind of unique where you can power it up. I like how you have to cover stuff up and decide in what order. Like so many times I was like, oh, I messed that up because I covered up the wrong card. And then at the end, you really only have one choice of where you're going to put it. So there's that. And then there's the choice of, I'm going to lose these banners, but I'm going to score points.
Mm-hmm.
So which way do you want to go there? I also like the fact that I don't think this is a game. Some games where it tells you maybe to go hard into one thing in particular. And I feel like you could do that, but you can burn through an entire action and there be nothing left to do, especially if other people are doing it. So this is a game where it's interesting because it also sometimes it doesn't benefit you to be the only one doing something because there's so much of interplay based off of other people doing things. Because you get stuff if you build a wall next to somebody's gate, and I didn't build any gates, so I never got any money, but I built next to people's stuff and we got stuff that way. I don't know. I just did a lot of everything and it turned out right. And I kind of like that. I like the fact that I played a kind of a general game and everything you do just kind of feels good. Cause if you move on a track, maybe you get to move a bump or you get to do this and you get a thing. It just felt like whatever you did, you were going to get something out of it.
Yeah. And depending on how your cards come, you might be forced a little bit into, generalizing yourself. or not doing what you wanted to do, right? Like I want to play red, but then your card doesn't come and you go play gray or whatever.
I think adding on that, I think it's kind of
Yeah.
nice as well, though, that the card you play doesn't have to determine the action that you play. You still count your banners, so you could play a card that adds no gray banners, but you could still take a gray action. So even though you may want certain cards to come through to give you a higher volume of banners, you're also never completely stuck. You just have to do something that you don't want to do. It just may not be at the power level, and I think that's where the meeple play is nice in that it can bounce some of those up. Another thing that I think is really good about this game, even though it is definitely not a light game, it is nice that of the 3 different banner actions, there's really only 2 things you can do for each of them. And so there's not just endless possibilities of what you can do, which I think makes it a little more approachable than some games that are similar on a weight scale. Because it's really 6 different things you can do instead of, again, some of the ones that have infinite options for worker placement options or things of that nature.
I think all of us were surprised at what the weight was on BGG. It does not feel that way. I mean, there's 3 actions. Each one you can do 2 different things.
I got kind of lost in the sauce, and then I got last place. So I think maybe the game is better played. Just do your thing and then continue.
Yeah, sometimes. I don't know.
It didn't seem very complicated to me at all.
I think maybe the weight comes from the decision space of what card to put down and what aux action to do.
Yeah, that could be.
Not the
there's a
actions.
lot of
you can
orders
actually-
of
yeah.
operation.
Yep.
There are a couple weird little things where, like, most games try to work this out of the system, but this game doesn't really have a way to do it. Is just where, like, you'll play one of your elders and they only increase your action value for that turn, but there's no way of really marking that thing was already there at the beginning of a turn. So you could be like, oh, and I'm adding this. Just the accounting can be a little wonky, but if you have a good memory or you're like being honest with yourself, that's not a big issue.
Yeah. I like those too. The little, I don't know, they're not aux actions. They're like little spaces where you can put meeples down to give yourself a bonus for that turn.
Right.
And it's fun that there's a reward for not using them and that they can help you get food income. I'm a sucker for feeding mechanisms. I know a lot of people don't like those, but I feel like this one is the right amount of stress. If you're actively accumulating food, then it's not something you need to worry about, but also you can't just spend food recklessly and then still just find your way to make it back with one final turn. So I think there's a good balance in that. And it's 1 food per worker. If you're getting a whole bunch of workers out, that can seem really cost prohibitive, but there are ways to kind of subtract the number of workers that you're counting for. And I think that is a nice play there as well.
I think that it's nice that the game like punishes you for taking the best stuff. And like Rob really used that to his advantage in this game. Like Rob didn't do any of the crazy cool technologies. He didn't get any endgame techs. He didn't build he didn't build any gates. And so he was never short on guys because building the gates takes your guys. Building the scrolls takes your guys. He ended up using a lot of the guys for Levites. But like you don't have to feed those guys at the very least. And so I think it's cool that the game, like, if you're not out there taking the stuff that increases your ability to get things passively, you get to use those things every round to generate resources. So,
kind of tying into what we mentioned too about where some of that weight might come from. I think part of it as well is there's really nothing you can do in this game that doesn't have a cost. So, moving the tent is really the only thing that costs nothing. But even if you try to move that greater numbers, then it does add a cost to it. But so games where movements are free tend to be lighter, but because you have to have the things to do the things that you want to do, that requires some foresight and strategic planning that probably contributes to that weight to some extent as well.
I think it would be pretty impossible to play this game without picking up some rubble. I think you kind of got to do that no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're heavy in the coin game and you really take advantage of the traders
That's
to
true.
buy the things you need, maybe not. But it's also a pretty interactive Euro game. I mean, people don't really do things to hurt you per se, but where you're thinking about building, there's definitely some competition for that, and that gets intense towards the end if people are tracking it. If the red temple works the way that I'm sure it was intended, then there's some friendly cooperation there. You're building things next to people to get little boons for both of you, and it incentivizes you to build in other places because you don't get double the bonus when you build on yourself, or next to yourself. So I think that there is a pretty healthy amount of interaction in this.
I think there's even more interaction the more you play this game. Like if you understand the game, I think one of the cons, which it's not a big con, but I think one of the things that is rough about the game is when you're playing it for the first couple times, you don't always remember that you can do the trading action at the bottom. You don't always think about like how you're filling out the temple and how you're like building out the tech track. But as you play more with people who've played before, you do start cooperating to like pay each other coins and make sure that temples get filled out at opportune times and yada yada. So I think it's an opportunity for the game. Like I think it has a good longevity because it gets more nuanced as you play it.
I got one last pro at least for me. On your board, there's 5 different areas that you can upgrade, and those 5 areas are asymmetric, right? So each player, there's
4 different tiles
Yeah.
for all 5 of those
and
things.
those are all random. So you maybe get some synergies, but they're all like when you flip them over, they're all like significantly better in a interesting way. Like I flipped over my feeding one, but I got the same amount of food, but I got a resource which let me build a ton of walls, right? And I thought that was really interesting, and I've never really seen anybody do something like that where it's it's almost like Taverns of Tiefenthal type.
I was just gonna say that.
Where but everybody's is the same in Taverns. Where this is like it would be everybody was different, and it makes your play feel unique to the other players.
And some of them have like fun little wrinkles, and some of them don't. They just do better stuff, which is cool. Like I had one tonight that I didn't have before that let me spend coins for bread, like whenever, the 2 coins per bread. So I was like, well, if I always just have a lot of coins, then I never have to worry about if I have enough bread, and but I didn't have, like, I think the other 3 farms don't have anything like that, but maybe they give you more stuff when you go to the farm and upgrade the farm. And yeah, those are cool.
And yeah, it just gives you a little boon. And the upgrades, there's a section that's stuff you put your meeples on that happen during your turn. There's 2 sections that are where you can put meeples at the end of the turn or end of the round for income. And then there's a section where it's your storage, where you can store as much as you want. I thought that play was interesting, and it's nice that there's different places on your board you can put meeples that you can then upgrade to get special stuff for yourself.
I like that this game kind of turns the conventions of, I already kind of touched on this, but I like it that it turns the conventions of Euro games kind of on its head, where I feel like it's like kind of bad sometimes to be the first person out to go grab the stuff that seems really good at the beginning, because people can sort of build on that, whether it's the scroll track or filling out like the temple or, like all the things that seem really attractive and seem like to be kind of the killers in other Euro games. Like they're kind of traps in this one. And so you've got to make sure you're going to get your value out of the choices you make. Whereas like the main stuff you do in the game, like collecting rubble and building the walls, is always really valuable. So I don't know. I like that.
All right. Who wants to get a con out here? Jake, I know you got one.
But yeah, I think that, I don't know. So I've played this a couple times now, and despite not necessarily thinking the path I took the first time was very good, took that path again for inexplicable reasons, and I still just feel like I don't know that I think that they're all comparable in value. I'm sure there is more balance there than my after a couple plays can acknowledge, but it just feels like the temple putting resources in there, if other people don't contribute to that and things don't fill, it's like you're not getting the the extra bonus that building walls and gates adjacent to people gives you. So like you can do it and you can earn points on your side. And I think more or less those points are probably comparable because you're just getting them up front instead of getting them at the end. But you just don't, it's not as easy, I feel like, to get those extra benefits from that than it is maybe some of the other paths.
I think you can say that about every one of those, though, because if no one is doing the walls and gates, then you're not sharing all the stuff there. And if nobody's doing the blue tech pyramid, then you want to go to a certain spot, you've got to build all the way up there. Whereas you could maybe, so the game to me it's very interconnected, and every game could be different depending on who you're playing with and what strategies people are doing. The temple seems harder, but like if Tim and I didn't start off building all the walls and gates and stuff, and instead we're like, let's dump it in there, then that would have been done soon, and like we would not have finished the town.
I think maybe part of the problem is red really has 2 costs, whereas everything else has 1 cost.
Yeah, I don't
the fact that you have to pay to get more actions, and red banners aren't really useful unless you have enough Levites out there to be able to take those actions. But that is a cost, and then it's a cost to be able to do either of the other actions, and maybe that's what makes it feel worse and you don't get as much out of it.
I think red would be cooler if you didn't have to choose between the temple and burning stuff. Like if you could do both of those things.
We had that wrong. You can do both of those, and we did that this game.
That's right. That's right. You can do both. So never mind. I think it's fine.
I think reds are fine too. I think it's the only action where you can permanently increase how many banners you have, other than tucking a card, and I haven't played red. I've just seen it played, but it's how you get way up that track, which I think is really valuable. I've been at like the bottom end of the track every round, for every game. Like any other dude that I put in like the scroll or the gate, they don't permanently increase my gray and blue actions. I have to feed them still, and they just sit there and don't do anything for me. Like the tech guys like give me those techs, but like I don't get anything for playing stuff out there, whereas playing Levites gets you stuff. I don't know. I think there's way more to the game than a couple of plays. I don't think it's unfair to say that red could be underpowered, but I've played 2 very blue-heavy games, and I've felt like I didn't get anywhere near as much out of them as I would have just like tanking, like upgrading my board or the gray actions. But it could be that both blue and red actions are not just not as good as that.
Well, blue requires, like, the technology is
you have to pay so much for the blue stuff.
It is, but you also can get more of that from, at least from my board, the extra tiles where you can place workers. You could get more blue than any of the other colors. I don't know if it was the same for you.
It's not the same.
No, it's just different for
Okay, so my board was telling me I should have maybe done more blue probably from that, which I didn't do. But blue being the tech, I know you're the tech guy, Cam, but I like the fact in a game where you just can't like tank tech and win.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Like I think tech is supposed to be there as a tertiary thing that helps you do the other stuff in the game.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying is I think that all of the actions are not necessarily overpowered or underpowered. I think that making the right choices according to what you can do better is really important, and so it is like it's way more of a tactical experience than just like, oh, here's my 3 techs and I'm just gonna run them for the rest of the game.
I mean, I think building the gray action with building the walls and the gates is probably the most fun thing in the game, and that's why and it seemed like it's my con, so I'm gonna say it's the easiest when it's not.
It's definitely the most straightforward in scoring.
It is straightforward, and like you get a lot of end game points from it, but especially at the beginning, I just don't like how many spots are out there. It can take you a long time to look all the way around the board and figure out what am I going to do with my points, because I want to try to clear away rubble and maybe build a card, because you could only do one wall spot.
It probably took the Israelites way longer to figure out what part of the wall they were going to start on too, when it was all damaged, but then as it got less damage, and then it was really easy to choose where they were going to go fix.
I think it'd be cooler if you could do more than one wall spot. Like if you could just clear off multiple things, or like you clear off that, and I'm going to clear one off of here.
Yeah, but think about how many blessings you could get from knocking out certain areas in one action. If you got
Well,
just the
people
time.
leave it there for
And
a
you can go
layup.
pick all the stone. Like I don't know. I agree with Jake.
I
don't-
do really like though that the variable setup in that you just are randomly pulling different materials out for there, so it's not always that this spot is a cinder and a wood, but that it can end up being 2 gold, or and so that is going to change the points that you're working with it. So there's always going to be an evolving way to approach those areas to build, and I think that's really fun.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I just
we're
think
back to positives, but
at the beginning of the game, that's a lot to digest, I think.
there's a lot out there.
That's
for sure.
a con for me, just looking at the entire board of what can I clear and what can I build and what is it next to and what do I get. It was daunting at the beginning of the game. It less so when there's less spots left and you kind of get a better handle on it, but it's a lot to begin with.
I do always think it's a little weird when there are not as many rounds as you allow players. I don't know how much that really matters in this game. Even though it's really interactive, there's not really like a worker placement spot that somebody's really going to beat you to that's going to prevent you, because outside of where you're going to build, which certainly there were some times where somebody built where somebody else wanted, it's not overly that impactful. But again, I still just feel like it's weird to not have, and maybe that's why it's best at 3 players. I think it's funny how many games that we review on this, and I've played every player count except the one that they say is best, but that happens a lot.
For sure. I mean, we
I
played.
feel like 3 is one of the most common best on board games lately anyways.
I like 3-player games.
Yeah. 3's a crowd. 4's too many. 5, I'm not playing that.
Last con for me is I wish it was like 90 minutes instead of 120 minutes. Like I think it just a little like it feels like it's just 3 actions too long. Even though you don't get to do everything you want to do, it just I don't know.
And that's why you played at 3 players.
Maybe there's why. Yeah,
I mean, the game is probably 30 minutes per player,
Yeah.
would be my guess.
I mean, honestly, I felt like upon my two-player version of this, I thought there was so much more stuff that I want to do that I wasn't able to do, but I didn't really feel that way at 4 players because, I mean, the wall was done. So I just feel like maybe as more people are doing things, you don't necessarily get that. That doesn't mean I accomplished everything because I really leaned into a few certain paths, but it didn't hold that same feeling with higher player count. So maybe that is another sweet spot.
With 2 and 3 players, you start with some of the wall built, right?
Yeah. So there is really on a 2-player game, the whole top part, but 2 gates and all the walls except the 2 corners that build onto the corner gates are covered. And I think when you're playing 3 players, maybe 1 or maybe still both of those gates are covered, and then just the area between them, and then the gates start with money on them. I guess effectively that there's that many less actions that people are taking to use those gates, which puts money out that way. So,
You want to get final thoughts?
Yeah, here on the Board Boys podcast, we have a 3-boing rating scale, 0 being the worst, 3 being the best. One time only, you can give your 4-boing game.
unless it's the name, and you can do that willy-nilly whenever you want to.
4-boing names are a dime a dozen. Campbell, why don't you give us a 0 and a 3-boing game of Ezra and Nehemiah, since you like to pontificate on this subject?
0-boing game of Ezra and Nehemiah is Israelites are never released from exile. Babylon wins, and then Persia takes over. But Cyrus says, actually, you guys have to stay for 1 billion more years, and then they're in charge to this day, and we still have to use their goofy-looking coins. 3-boing game of Ezra and Nehemiah. They get everything built, and the Israelites stick to the plan, and they get everything good. But I guess with my particular religious persuasions, it's probably a more you know what, 3-1 game of Ezra and Nehemiah is exactly how it went in the book. Can't do better than that, because that paves the way for the JC man himself, and just goes to show that when humans try to do something, you guys, there's always going to be problems. And so I like that it mirrors real life. That's a 3-boing. story. Things go good, some things go bad, and you're really only responsible for the way you live. You know.
So you're not down with that new crypto coin, Persian coin?
Does it look like the Persian coins?
I mean,
that's not a
you
new.
can't
That's not a
really,
new coin,
you
huh?
can't really see it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
If you spend 2 cents on it, you get 4,000 shares.
Is this actually a cryptocurrency? Or
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No.
It probably is.
Sorry, just joking, Cam.
I'll
Well-
get Persian coin.
Cam, why don't you start us off? Let's bookend it with the owners. We'll go Cam and we'll end with Jake.
So I'm experiencing I started having a ocular migraine when we first started playing this game, and now I'm having like a second one, and my eyes are going pretty wacky right now. So that's kind of freaking me out.
Did you take your heart pills today?
I did. I don't think the ocular migraines have anything to do with my heart, but maybe they do. I don't know. I really like the theme of this game. I think you guys know that. I'm not a big theme guy in like many things, but if it can be a good game about stuff I'm interested in, then that jazzes it up for me big time. If this game was about like building walls so zombies can't get in, I think it'd be a 2.5 for me. But as the theme is about the books of Ezra and Nehemiah, which I love, I'm giving it a 3 boings.
For me, this is up there. Like I enjoyed it. I would say this is in the upper echelon of the Garphill games. For me, I'm gonna go 2 boings on this one. I think it fits a real weird niche. Like I like the small box. It's a lot of game in the small box, which I like. The Bible theme isn't going to be for everybody. Not everybody cares about.
Honestly, if you don't have a elaborate background in this time period, the theme's not really there. It's
Yeah,
for people
well-
who understand that, then you can obviously make those connections to it, which
Yeah.
which is intentional, and I think that that's great. But also, like, if you don't know those stories, I'm gonna take a gray action and pick up resource.
Anyway, like the theme doesn't do anything for me in this one. It like I like the art, I like the board, it all looks good. I just think it's like it is weightier than I kind of thought it would be. After I watched the video, I was like, "Oh, this game will be easy to play," and I don't think it is, which I think is going to be a sticking point for some people. I think. I don't know. It's a heavy Euro game for sure. Like anybody, you could play it, but you could also have a hard time figuring out how to score your points too.
Yeah. I liked this game way more than I thought I was going to. I like the interplay with the cards and the aux actions and what you're doing on the board. I really enjoyed it. For me, I think it's a 2.5. Give it another play or two, it might go one way or the other. But I really like it. Hopefully, it will stay around and we play some more.
Former social studies teacher, I really like games that are based in history, and so that drew me to it right away. And again, I really like Hadrian's Wall, which is in this same, or in Legacy of You, which are both in this kind of ancient history, I guess, category of games they're developing that are separate from the games. So it was something that I thought I was going to like, and I definitely have agree, and that is carried through upon playing it. I think it's a 2.5 for me. There are some things that make it not be the uppermost echelon, but I definitely enjoy it a lot, and looking forward to playing it again.
Sweet. Good old average of 2.5 from us. It's nice. It's a good game.
Yo.
All right. So we like to look back 1 year in the past in the Board Boys podcast on a segment we like to call Bumper Dump. Cam?
Baby, turn around. I wanna see that sexy board game go. Board boys bump.
Or dump. Got it. All right. So we looked back 1 year in the past at Challengers. It was a 7.3 for 1651 to 7.1.
It's still
Bump.
a bump.
Yeah. It's always, we just bump everywhere.
Damn bumps.
Yeah. It's 999. So it broke the top 1,000.
Yeah.
Yo.
That's actually a lot higher than I would have thought it would have been still.
It's fun.
No,
I
I mean,
don't
like, I
know.
feel like it would have been a better ranked game now after the
Yeah.
amount of time.
I
That's what I'm
agree.
saying.
I think it'd be like in the top 300.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's like it's unique.
It is. I think it's just kind of hard to get to the table because it's one of those games that I think is cooler probably with more people. To me, it kind of feels like a convention type game.
I agree with that. We had a lot of fun playing that tournament.
Yeah, we had.
16 players.
There was the tournament we played at the Dealt Hand event,
Yeah.
which was cool. playing with the Beach Cup, which is a standalone expansion that I think if you want a more gamery version of Challengers, go for Beach Cup because the factions in that are a little crazier.
Crazy factions.
Cool. If you want to give us feedback, you can do so on our Board Game Geek Guild. You can find that through our website, boardboys.com. Jeremy Dobler, BJ tried to show me this game, and now that I've played it, and my initial opinion is confirmed. I'm super unimpressed with deck builders and card-based battlers in general. This one does nothing to change my mind, and in fact, at times worse than standard deck builders, since after building your deck, you essentially just play war, flipping cards over until one of you loses and then moves on to the next round. This is 100% dump for me. 0 boing's an option, if not half a boing.
I mean, 0 boing is an option.
It is, yeah. So that's the worst review we've ever gotten on the game. That's awesome. All right. Jeremy Thoman.
Minus your opinions on Earth, right?
I did not give it a 0. 0.5.
0.5.
Yeah. Jeremy Thoman, 2.5 boings, better in person. The gameplay isn't super involved, but the battles with each other make for a fun time. Playing with a larger group at BGG Con was a good time. I think maybe it would be a group dependent. It's more about experience in the game. There are fun combos to be had with the deck building. I think that's totally true. Like,
Yeah, you can definitely find some cool combos, and the game is just, if you're not there to have fun and smack talk, you're probably not going to enjoy the game.
yeah, I think it's 6+ only too. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't play with 4 people.
Nah.
Yeah. Rob Cooper, it's definitely suffered from the BGA taint where the fun of drawing and playing cards is somewhat lost and robotic. If I were playing in real life, I would possibly enjoy it if everyone was in the right mood, but those are big ifs. 1 boing for him. BJ from Board Game Gumbo. Challengers is a board game collection essential. It is the ultimate beer and boudin game, whatever that is, BJ. That has enough strategy to even make us stronger, even made stronger by the expansion for repeated plays. Challengers is unfortunately one of the few games that's made worse by BJ implementation. I would agree with that. I feel bad for anyone that has played it online or has tried to do only tried it once at a regular game night. The fun is rapidly developing your deck, jumping into the matches with gusto, talking smack, and commiserating with your buddies at the end while cheering on the last 2 contestants. He'll take the Dobbler's 3 boings and make it a 6 boing if he can, or just a hearty 3 boings for him. And then our last comment, Chris Yee, challenges a 2 boring game. It barely edges out being over the 1.5 boing by just leaning into the fun of it. It's humorous take on replicating a Magic the Gathering tournament in a 40-minute game. Is it strategic? Is it objectively a good game? Is it something I want to play often? None of the above, but it's fun. That's all we got.
I have not actually played Challengers, but it was not something that seemed like I would really enjoy it that much. So
I mean,
It's fun.
yeah, like I think you get 8 people, like you want like a 30-minute game. Like 16 was awesome. All the
Yeah.
kids played it. Like,
No, it doesn't seem like it seems like not a Jake game.
yeah.
He's kind of a curmudgeon in that way.
I'm a curmudgeon in most aspects of my life. What did you guys all give it previously?
So
Probably a 2.5 or 2.
Cam gave it a 2. Rob and I gave it 2.5.
Stay there.
I think so. I like the Beach Cup a lot. I don't know that I needed to have both of them, but I'm gonna take them to. I'm running a event at a conference I'm going to, and I'm probably gonna take both copies and probably run a big event. Like it's an event game. To me.
We played a 16-player tournament with, I would say, 12 of the 16 people had never played Challengers before in 45 minutes.
Yeah, and it ran smooth.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if my son can teach you the game, then it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's a bonus to
yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for another episode of the Board Boys podcast, season 14, episode 11. E&N, Ezra and Nehemiah.
Ezra and Nehemiah, baby.
Yeah. Go to theboardboys.com. From there, you can find all the juicy links. You can go to our Discord. You can go to our Patreon. I'd like to thank our Patreon members now. Hammond Buckland, BJ from Board Game Gumbo, Timothy Crisco, Shifty Teeth, Jeff Gray, Andre Bosch, Braden Dowdy, Rob Cooper, Richard Lane, Matt Kelly, and Jeremy Thoman. That's right. We have a new Patreon member. I got the notification when I was at the con. Australia people love us. We must be big in Australia, I think. So
who's the new one from there?
Timothy Crisco.
Timothy Crisco.
Because he's paying in Australian dollars. So I'm assuming he's an Aussie. So thanks a lot, Timothy. Appreciate it.
I mean, let's go.
You made my weekend when I got the little notification. I was like, sweet.
So we'll go to England. and then we'll make a trip down to Australia.
Yeah.
All in one trip.
Where
Easy trip.
they send all the prisoners.
Didn't
Yeah.
you say we have a strange following in Indonesia as well?
We do. If you go look at our
we can stop
downloads.
we can stop there on the way as well.
Yeah, I never got.
Indonesia and Australia are close,
Yeah.
so
That's
that would
true.
be easier.
Sounds tight. What an awesome trip.
Right?
Yeah. Like, just find game conventions. We'll spend 2 weeks doing it.
Set it up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for another episode of the Board Boys podcast. Until next time, we hope you like board games.
And very soon there will be a party for the world. Boing, boing, boing.
Doinker, doinker, doinker.
Get up in the morning, slaving for bread, sir, so that every mouth can be fed. Oh, me Israelites, get up in the morning, slaving for bread, sir, so that every mouth can be fed. Choices ago, I don't want to end up like Bonnie and Clyde. Israelite. After a storm, there must be a calm. If you catch me in a farm, you sound your alarm. Israelite. So that every mouth can be Israelites. My wife, I'm a kid to get up and not leave me. Darling, she said that was yours to receive. Israelites. Look